Well, here we are in Bilbao, and the Spurs fans are over there still celebrating. The Spurs players are down there still dancing around with the Europa League trophy. It's extraordinary. Spurs have actually won a trophy. I'm still letting it sink in. I can't quite believe it. They beat Man United 1-0. Brennan Johnson, scrappy goal shortly before half-time, and they've only gone and done it. And Dean Ashton was on co-coms for talkSPORT tonight. And Dean, it was a very strange game. So Spurs got the lead and then defended the lead like dogs in the second half. It was a very odd second half, wasn't it? But Spurs got the job done.
Oh, look, it was worlds away from what we've come to expect from this Tottenham team. But they'd found something in the quarter-final and the semi-final. And ultimately, they backed themselves to stop this Manchester United team from scoring, and felt that they maybe didn't have the weapons to hurt them enough, going to a back three with quite a long part of the game to go, sitting so deep, whacking it forwards. But it's about getting the job done in finals. As ugly as it was at times, look at those supporters now. They do not care. They're not thinking about what happened in the last 20 minutes. They're just soaking it all up.
Oh, they are. They're thinking about Champions League next season. And Jim Proudfoot, it was attack v defence, and Spurs had no intention of attacking for a good long chunk of that second half, did they?
No, it's anti-Ange ball, really, wasn't it? It's a complete antithesis of everything that he, so say, stands for or stood for in his first 18 months at the club. But they got the job done, and that was all that mattered. And you're absolutely right. Nobody here tonight will ever forget it. Nearly everybody here tonight will forget nearly everything about the 90 minutes. They'll remember the goal. We still don't know who scored it. We'll remember Mickey van der Ven's clearance and the lay save from Vicario, and then the trophy lift. That's all you've got to remember. But they've won. They've won a European trophy for the first time since 1984. They've won a trophy for the first time since 2008, and that was all tonight was ever going to be about for Spurs, was getting over the line and getting it done. And that was the kind of performance, really, that we've seen from them when they've been able to pick their first choice defence over the last 6-8 weeks or so. Eintracht Frankfurt was very similar to that, as Dean said during commentary, and in fact the home game wasn't dissimilar. Ultimately, all they wanted to do was soak it up, and if they got another chance on the counter-attack, they'd try and take it. If they didn't, just keep soaking it up.
Well, you're right, the Europa League, especially the latter stage of a knockout, it's been about clean sheets for Tottenham Hotspur, and another one here tonight meant that they won. Well, Man United really rubbish. Is that summing up Man United tonight?
Yeah, they were very, very poor. They offered so little in the first 70 minutes. I think you've got to give credit to Tottenham, and they were maybe able to get away with a little bit more than some might have expected in terms of that physicality. They were so in Manchester United's face in that first half. The amount of fouls that they gave away, a couple of yellow cards in the game. They just disrupted everything about Manchester United's play, and they never got going until the last 20 minutes. And by that point, it was probably too late. And, you know, Amorim's probably going to have to answer some questions as to why he stuck with it for so long. We even talked about it at half-time, maybe making a change because of that first half. And there's nothing really worse than losing a final and thinking, well, we've lost because we're so poor, rather than we've given it everything, we've played well, but we've just lost out. That's not the case tonight.
Yeah, Bruno Fernandes, in an attacking sense, virtually non-existent for Manchester United this evening. They will definitely have regrets. And Jim, Dean was talking about Spurs disrupting things and getting in faces. They committed more than double the amount of fouls as Manchester United, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, part of the game plan, they couldn't allow Manchester United to play. And United didn't really play. They didn't have any huge attacking intention. They ended up, I think, 15 shots maybe they have, but 4 shots on target against a side who are resolutely sitting back with only 30-odd% of possession. That is really poor. They looked better when Xerxes came on. I know he wasn't fit enough to start, or we believe he wasn't fit enough to start. Maybe he could have come on a little bit earlier, but then you've got to potentially manage the game being 120 minutes rather than 90. So it is a difficult balance of coming to sort of Amorim's defence, being devil's advocate. But they were poor. They just had very little, and you can only sum it up really by saying that was a performance in keeping with so many that we've seen over the course of this season. And we're in this remarkable situation where a Manchester United manager has been in situ for 6 months and lost more games than he's won in the first time of any of our lifetimes.
Extraordinary. And listen, I think with Amorim, he may be judged on the summer window and the pre-season, and going into next season, that's to be discovered. And so too the future of Ange Postecoglou, who's had this moment where he's won this trophy, Dean Ashton, and I know you're particularly happy about that. You're nowhere near as happy as Ange. He's very smug about it, but he might not be Spurs manager for much longer.
No, it just seems totally bizarre to me, and I don't even think we know what he's thinking. You know, might he walk away? Might he say, well, you know, I've done what you've asked, but I'm not staying for you lot. I'm off, with my reputation very much intact. Look, I've backed him all season, you know, when they were really poor, but I felt I'd seen certain things in the way that his team had played when the best players were fit that I thought you could build on. I mean, look, it's hard to get past the amount of defeats that they've had, but I think this run in the Europa League's had a big part to play alongside the injuries. It's just whether Tottenham feel as if it's gone too far before this final, but I think he's going to have won a lot back with the supporters with this. He has to have.
Well, he's got legendary hero status, whether he stays or not. And Jim, you said something before the game about how even if they win tonight, that might actually persuade some of the board to say, yeah, we need to make a change.
Well, just on the basis that if you've got a manager that has led you to 17th in the Premier League, which is where they may well end up, and yet there are so many mitigating circumstances. We also talked before the game started about how much better Spurs are when their first choice back four is in situ, particularly the two centre-halves, and we've seen another clean sheet tonight. So there are mitigating circumstances, but I think the Tottenham hierarchy might look at it and go, okay, he's delivered in the Europa League. If you're being really critical, how many difficult hurdles have they got over? Well, they've beaten a lacklustre Manchester United in the final, Eintracht Frankfurt definitely, AZ and Werder Glimt. You'd expect any Premier League team to be able to see those two off if they're in the knockout stages of Europe, and they got through the group relatively unscathed. I think you need to take a big step forward if you're going to be in the Champions League. And I think that the Tottenham hierarchy might say, well, this hasn't worked. We're now under pressure. This is an opportunity that perhaps we didn't think we were going to get. We really have to make the most of it. So it's time to ride off into the sunset. Ange, thanks very much. Here's a few extra quid than you might have had we lost. And you go with our blessing. Very best of luck. It hasn't worked out, but thank you very much for what you've achieved. That's how I think it may well play out.
Very interesting. He'll still be smug. Probably watch the game back a million times and shine his medal or whatever. And actually, I've just seen a Spurs fan with an Ange Postecoglou mask and an inflatable kangaroo. I kid you not. So there's some love, and no doubt there's even more love now. There will be Spurs fans totally persuaded by the genius of Ange Postecoglou. And maybe I'm being a little bit flippant there, but one thing he's not, Dean Ashton, he's not a clown, is he?
No, he's not, and he was right to pull that up, and he did very publicly yesterday in the press conference, because he was right in what he said. You know, he's worked incredibly hard to get to the position that he's in, and you don't do that by luck. You do that by hard work, belief in your own abilities, and sticking by what you think is going to be right for the team that you're managing. So, as Jim just said, it's the big decision of, do you think actually there needs to be a bigger step forwards with somebody else, or do you go, actually, maybe he's shown us something that we weren't sure that he had, and let's go and really back him now and strengthen the squad so that if there is injuries, he can still continue to play the way that he sees fit.
And of course the irony is, now that they're in the Champions League, they're going to be able to attract a different class of manager to a vacant job than if they hadn't been in Europe at all. So he might have shot himself in the foot by winning this in a way. I mean, that will never enter his thinking, of course. But he's not a clown, you're absolutely right. He has had success, bar one club. Everywhere he's been, he has had success. and he's delivered what several Spurs managers before him haven't been able to. And those that are still here, and we're 6-7 songs in and we haven't had Chaz and Dave yet, but those that are still here are going to be absolutely euphoric and will remember him now with fondness for the rest of their lives.
Well, we've been rabbiting on too much. You see what I did there? But Spurs fans are going to go on through the night and beyond, I don't doubt. And just look at it this way, they're fourth bottom, but they're going to be in the Champions League next year. Arsene Wenger's been one of the loudest voices saying that really shouldn't be happening. This was a guy who said fourth place was a trophy, so just ignore all of that and let Spurs have their moment, let them drink it in. It's been a long time about Palace winning their first trophy, Newcastle winning one after a long time, and now Spurs have gone and done it. Let the fans enjoy every single second, and we're about to join them as well. We'll see you
on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.